Let's open our Bibles over to Luke chapter 10. We're continuing with the ministry of Jesus, looking at the life of Jesus and seeing how not only how he wants us to follow him, but also what he's done for us, what he demonstrated God's will in the earth. So, he desired to heal, restore, forgive. He also wanted to correct and bring us uh, away from a worldly way of living. And what's interesting is that even though that was a couple thousand years ago and over 2,000 years ago that Jesus walked the earth, the same type of people lived then as live now. We recognize or we see a lot more evil, a lot more just depravity and all that kind of stuff. But it's before our eyes because the news media is promoted, or not promoted, but reported more. We got social media more. We know we've got such a broad area that we can see that we're close to. The further back that it was, back in the 1800s, you just happened to be somebody riding by might tell you something, or if you went to town for that month and you spent a little time, maybe the person at the store told you something. You didn't have access to even TV, much less and even when I was a kid, we saw things on the TV, the nightly news, and that was the only way that you got anything. And now, I read a couple of articles this morning on some things that are going on. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know. And so, there's some other news that I need to go back and find some information on that I heard about that I didn't even realize happened. But we can stay away from things for the most part, and we still have access to so much information. But the people were still corrupt. There was still evil in the earth. There were still those that would reject, the not only God, but reject one another, a neighbor, not take care of a neighbor. The story right before this was the Good Samaritan story, and how they walked right past the problem, but one came and acted in love towards this person who'd gotten beaten. But I want us to go to verse 38, and I want to read the story of Mary and Martha. And I want us to see where, even though we live in a world of technology, and there's tremendous things at our fingertips. I went to a leadership lunch yesterday with local pastors, and they talked about AI, artificial intelligence. I know for us in the ag world, when we say AI, we mean artificial insemination. But it's artificial intelligence, and all jokes aside, it's a very serious thing. It's a very valuable thing, but also a concerning thing. But the way and the things that it can do is just incredible. But the right people have to plug in the information to shape that artificial intelligence, and that's what we were talking about. Well, in verse 38, it says that as Jesus and his disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, "Lord, doesn't it seem unfair that my sister just sits here while I do all the work?" Now, these were adult women, sisters, but doesn't it still sound like siblings? This is unfair. I'm doing more work. She's getting away with something. That part. But in all seriousness, notice it says that Martha was distracted. Now she wasn't wrong for serving and taking care of and everybody. If you're hosting a bunch of people at your house, it's your house, your responsibility. If you were just sitting there at the feet of the teacher and not doing anything to serve, that'd be kind of odd. It could be kind of unusual. And you would expect a sister to help who lived there as well, and or was right there in that area, and you'd expect her to help. Sure, it wasn't that serving the way Martha was serving was wrong. It was that she was distracted to the point of worry and concern. He says, Jesus said, the Lord said to you, my dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There's only one thing worthy of being concerned about, Mary, and Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. I was talking to a fellow pastor and friend of mine that I really respect a lot, and somebody who I just love being around him. He and I are just like brothers. We think about ministry and approach and everything the same in a lot of ways, and have a lot of similarities there, and just trust in God. And we were talking about just ministry and getting ministry done without going into any great detail, but it requires so much help. It requires so many people to serve. It requires people to, we can only do so much as a pastor, and really only should do so much, but yet we have to keep everything working together. We don't have to control everything, but it needs to all fly the same direction, like a flock of geese, or they rotate and take turns of being at the point, because the one at the point is taking the brunt. They're taking the airflow they start the flow of air and split the pressure and spreads it out, and they rotate, I'm told, to the front, and they all take the different times they take the pressure. That's another good illustration that I need to write down and remember to use when talking about leadership and serving. But here's the thing. Martha, it wasn't wrong that she was serving, but I'm sure the house wasn't so big that she couldn't have been listening and receiving, not maybe as intently as somebody just sitting at Jesus' feet, but continuing to do what she did without distraction, without frustration, without worry and anxiety, without the pressure. Because here's what happens is, and I know some of you who serve in your churches, and some of you serve in my churches, and it's at times gets to be we could have a Martha syndrome, like I always show up, I'm always there, I'm always working, and these other people, they just come in and they this and that and get distracted by that. And it's not that we don't assess structure and systems and how we do things, but we got to remember that if it's service as unto the Lord, then God is repaying, God is replenishing, God is strengthening, God is directing, and so it's not all on us. But when we get worried and anxious and distracted by the little things, like that's what the Lord said. He said, you're distracted by this big dinner you're preparing, and the over all these details, there's all these things and the devil will throw these stumbling blocks at us, and our flesh will want to take self-pity, and I'm having to do all this stuff. Well, how about not letting that become a point of distraction and pulling you away, and just focus on, no, I'm gonna trust God. Even me as a leader, there's times it's easy to say, man, where'd everybody go? Where at the end whenever we're wrapping everything up, or where is everybody at the start, or what's this or that? You could focus on that. I could focus on that, but I would, if I'm not careful, lose the benefit and the recognition of those that do serve, and I'd lose the thankfulness that I have and the blessing it is to have those that serve. It takes a lot to pull anything off where ministry is concerned, especially where you're using so many volunteers, and asking people to take from their busy lives and give of their time. But it is all important. And it's amazing how many different ways, little things that people can do to serve. And Martha, her serving was valuable. Jesus wasn't saying, oh, you just come in and sit down and just hear the teaching and don't do anything else. He's saying, don't get your don't get distracted. Don't get all caught up. I'm trying not to say, just trust God in what you're doing. Don't get all upset over this little thing and make a small thing, make a mountain out of a molehill. Keep things on the level and just trust God. Now, if it needs to be addressed, if there's something that needs to be taken care of, hey, we didn't have enough people to do this, or we need somebody to do that. That's okay, but don't let it become a distraction so that you are unwilling and unable to serve in joy and serve in with the blessing of God on what you're doing. So, but always make sure that you take advantage of the opportunities to hear the word. That's the one thing about it. We have a way to hear the teaching, to hear the word, to hear what God's saying, and being in that service is important, I believe. But also, there's ways of being fed where you're supposed to be a part of, and receive it that way. So, just as you go out today, think about all the ways that you can serve, instead of thinking about and focusing on the things that you're doing and maybe nobody's noticing, or it feels like you're doing it all and pulling the whole. Don't get to feeling sorry for yourself, and don't get to feeling self-pity and get caught up and let the devil get you off into a place of distraction. Remain at the feet of Jesus and say, Lord, I'm going to both hear and I'm going to serve. I'm going to do it in joy. I'm going to do it in your strength. I'm going to trust you to enable me to do it. That's the way we have to look at ministry, because God will put more on your plate, or He'll give you more to do as we're willing, but He'll also always empower us to get it done. But we got to trust Him. So don't let somebody get you distracted. Focus on what it is that you want to do, need to do, and is before you, and do it with the right attitude and the right heart. Well, listen, as you go out through your day today, serve others, bless others, and trust in God to take care of you in whatever situation you're in. And go get them for Jesus.